yesterday was Friday the 13th, and a lot of people make a significant event out of that, you know, like, well, I mean, they consider it a scary day, sort of, you know.
I heard on the radio that says, why is today Friday the 13th? I said, because yesterday was Thursday the 12th.
Yeah. My wife was making the comment, you know, why do bad things happen on all the other days of the week, you know, month, whatever, combination of days and months, bad things happen every day. But a lot of people are, so I wrote something that I'm going to just read to you today since it was yesterday, but that's okay. I just kind of wanted to put things in perspective a little bit. So, if you'll bear with me, I'll just read this to you. I said, I had a sort of a headline, but I'll just start right here. Ironically, today is Friday the 13th, and many are afraid. But let's not waste time on silly superstitions. There's something much bigger moving against us, something or someone. Threatens our very existence or life as we know it. When an event looms large before us, larger than any we've ever seen or faced, what should we do? Consider David, who, as we've studied, is a young warrior. He has slain a vicious lion and a hungry, snarling bear with his bare hands. He's protected his sheep herd from thieving enemy soldiers. And now David observes this nearly 10-foot monstrosity of a man, covered in up to 200 pounds of mail, wearing bronze metal leggings, grasping an inches thick spear topped by an almost 25-pound iron head, and a sword that can crush your skull or cut you in half. For 40 days, Goliath has taunted your nation's army, leaving them cowering and speechless. At such a time, this phrase seems appropriate. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Hi, what's your name?
Lorenzo.
Hi, Lorenzo.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you. Good to have you.
Adam's coming.
Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Fred.
Hi, Brad.
Good
Bob. Pardon me? Bob. Hi, Bob.
So,
Lorenzo. Sorry.
it's okay. That's great. We're glad to have you here. You say Adam's coming?
Yeah, you brought me.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good deal. So David had success in the past, and but right now, as he stares up at this giant, he considers this, you know, this very well could be the first iteration of this famous phrase, you know, this famous phrase, past performance does not guarantee future results. So they tried to stop him, but he wouldn't listen to what would have seemed sound advice from his multitude of counselors, his brothers, his friend Jonathan, other soldiers, even his king. No, David, young idealistic David, thrusts himself into the fray with confidence and poise, as far as I can tell, no apparent fear. So was he naive? Or did he know something or someone? You might want to find out before your next encounter with an even more powerful giant than Goliath. He's out there taunting your God and your way of life. And if or when you step up, you'll be his target. But you can beat him the same way David did. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning.
That's a good movie. It's a good movie.
So, well, make a good Bible story too. So that's what I want to talk about is there are times when you wake up in the morning and you go into the day, and maybe the day's not even an ordinary day because David was on his way to deliver some things to his brothers in this army. We talked about this last week. So in that sense, it was not an ordinary day, but I have no doubt that David had no clue he was going to be facing Goliath that day. But we talked about last week that he had prepared himself. He was ready. But just because you're ready and you're prepared does not mean that you're going to not run from something that is bigger than you've ever seen before in your life, something scary or something that you've never confronted before. What was it that you think, we're going to read the passage, what was the question I'm going to ask and I'm going to read is, do you think it was that made David different than everybody else that day who had the same opportunity that he did? So let's read the passage. It's in 1 Samuel 17, a very common passage of Scripture. We've learned all about this in Sunday school. There's lots of things in here that we can take note of. I'm not going to read the first part because we read that last week. And just to understand, there's some differences on the weights, for example, how much a shekel is or how much a cubit is. And that's why when we try to translate it into English, we get different amounts. You might. So I'll kind of mention a couple of those as we go. So let's start out with verse 4. There went out a champion in the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. My Bible has a note here, 9 feet 9 inches. Another source, Wilmington's, has 10 feet or 10 foot 3s, and another source I looked at. There's different sources, but it's whether you're using a Roman cubit or a Jewish, version, depending on which it is, you're going to get a different number. Okay? But 9 feet, how high is the ceiling? Over on that side right there. About 10? Okay, that's a 6'8" door. So another 7. Okay, so I'm going to say that's about a 10-foot edge over there. So we're talking about that high. So Adam, do me a favor. Get up and go over there and stand against that wall.
I'm the tallest person here, right?
We just have to be next to Okay, so turn around and look up at that corner there. Okay, that's pretty big, right? You can come on back, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, but this guy, look what he's wearing now. He has a helmet of brass on his head. He was armed with a coat of mail. Now, these would be not the chain links, probably with the overlapping scales. Older technology back then, probably attached to some linen cloth or something like that. And it's going to be heavy. In fact, it was 5,000 shekels of brass, and some people estimate that anywhere from about 150 up to 200 pounds. Probably, I weigh 173 or so. So imagine wearing me on you just for armor, okay? And he had greaves of brass on his legs. These are covered like shin guards. And a target of brass between his shoulders. And there's speculation on what that really is. Some people say it was a smaller shield, and some people say it was actually a weapon. It says a target. That sounds a lot to me like a shield, or some kind of a protection. But again, there's argument about that, what that word actually is. It doesn't matter. The front's scary enough. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam. This is a big beam that's used on a loom that would be, holding a lot of fabric. It's literally, very thick. And the head of his spear was 600 shekels of iron. My Bible has 20 pounds. I read, again, Wilmington's 25 pounds. I've read about 18 pounds. Somewhere between 18 and 20 pounds. Pretty hefty, like a small dog. And so he's got this spear, and he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel and said to them, "Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. And if he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall you be our servants and serve us." Now he's been saying this for about 40 days, 6 weeks or so. And I say, this has been something that's going on. And let's kind of put this in perspective a little bit. It hasn't really been all that long ago here that the Israeli army has gone out after the Philistines Saul made this famous proclamation, we're not even going to eat until we've killed him. He calls a fast, which I'm calling really stupid leadership. Excuse me, but that's what it is. You feed your soldiers. You don't starve them, okay? That was a really dumb idea. So Jonathan, not knowing of this rule, he's gone out, he's prevailed in battle, he's coming back, he's like, man, come on, guys, let's go get him. And he comes across some honey and partakes of it, nourishes himself. But all the others are all worn out. They're completely depleted. It's like the guys on the Tour de France that have been riding for, how long did those guys ride? 21 days, I believe, in a row. And they're wore out. There's nothing left in them. And here comes this giant again. Now remember, the Philistines have had a little bit of this experience with Samson in their past. Samson was the Israeli champion. And Samson had showed them a thing or two. And they haven't forgotten this. So now they have a champion, these big, large men, from Amalek, these men from Gath, and apparently there used to be a number of them, but they were only now, there were Israelis that had none of them, and they were just in these areas primarily with the Philistines. And so now they've got theirs, and he's coming out, and he's taunting them. Let's continue to read. So when Saul and all Israel heard these words, they're tired, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was, we already read this, so I'm going to skip on up here, because we know why David's coming. He's got these cheeses, 10 cheeses, and he's going to look at how thy brethren fare. What do you think this phrase that they take their pledge? What do you think that's about? Do you have an idea about that? Verse 18. Sorry. Carry these 10 cheeses. That's what his dad Jesse, verse 17, is telling him to take them, the ephah of parched corn, take the 10 loaves, carry these 10 cheeses to the captain of their battalion, which would be pretty much like a company is about 100 men, a battalion is about 600, so it'd be like 2 battalions of men, which is a lot. And take their pledge. Do you have an opinion on that? And okay, well, we'll just put that as a question mark. It sounds to me like he's trying to get some kind of commitment.
It's according to Strong's, it's like in the sense of a bargain or an exchange, something that was given as security or a token of security or safety, or metaphorically, a bondsman.
Read the word pledge itself? Okay. Fred, do you have any idea?
No, just, assuming that a father was saying, treat my sons right.
Okay. That could be. That's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that. Take good care of them. Yep. Okay, good. And so now they're out there. I'm going to jump up to verse 22. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage and ran into the army and came and saluted his brethren. Hey guys, how you doing? What's up? And they're not really happy to see him. And as he talks, you think they would be like, hey, look what he's brought us. Maybe they had mixed emotions about that. So as he's talking with them, here comes Goliath out to do his daily, at least once a day event. And look at verse 24. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were sore afraid. That means they ran. And the men of Israel said, have ye seen this man that has come up surely to defy Israel? Is he come up? And it shall be that the men who... And so they're relating this to David, that the man that killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches and give him his daughter and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? Now, let's talk about that question for a minute. Why do you think David asked this particular question? Do you think that he was gunning for the role when he asked this question? Or was there something more to it than that?
I think there's something more to it.
Okay, what do you think?
I'm trying to put it together, really can't put it in my own words.
Okay.
I'm trying to say, but I do feel there's something else.
Okay.
I will find out.
Well, he's not a soldier, so it wouldn't be obvious for him to be doing anything at all. He's asking questions, but he's a problem solver. So he's engaging, he's trying to solve this, what really is a mystery to him. What's going on? What's being done? Is anything being offered as a reward? I mean, or since a reward is being offered, we just read the previous verse, surely somebody will step up here and do something. Bob.
I think his intent is we read the rest of it said, and take away the reproach from Israel. We know that David was a godly man, a man of God's own heart, and he was thinking this man is, a reproach with Israel, and he's been made unmuch for much of Israel and so forth and so. What are we doing to take away this reproach on Israel? What are we doing to defend, the honor of the Lord, our God, both from this heathen, so to speak.
Right. Now, this is the first sign of a leader. David?
It's interesting that they already told him in 25 what would happen, so I'm not sure what. Looks like he already had the answer in verse 25, so that makes it more puzzle why he asked the question. They just told
Yes, exactly. So obviously he's not asking the question like he doesn't know the answer. He's got some other reason for asking the question. It's really a motivating question. It's the question a leader would ask.
I mean, rallying the men to have a perspective from God's perspective, to look at Goliath as an impossibility alongside with God. We look at life circumstances, when we look at the big giants in our life, when we look at it from God's perspective and God is with us, I think we can rally other believers.
Right. What I want you to do is consider this, that just because something's not your job or your role doesn't mean you don't have an interest in it. And it doesn't mean you can't influence the people whose job it is to do what they should be doing. Right? Dave?
I'm going to direct your attention back to chapter 16, verse 18. This tells Saul basically is looking for someone just to come and play a harp. And a servant says, I've seen the son of Jesse, who is skillful at playing a harp. He is a mighty man of valor, a man of war, prudent in speech, handsome person, and the Lord is with him. Now, this is someone describing David, and I find that interesting. Of this young boy, he's describing this man, and so you have him. And obviously, he was willing to. If there was a problem, he didn't sit on it. He was willing to jump in and tackle it.
Right.
In his scenario, we know he was a shepherd. His sheep were being attacked. He didn't step back or send somebody else. He went in to fight the bear or the lion or whatever.
Right.
And that obviously was a training ground for him to be able to confront danger. But he also obviously was a young man of great faith, because we go down to the scenario where you're at, and you're saying this guy is first the living God and insulting the living God, and it's like I see this picture of this guy who's ready to go after him.
Right.
So you see David in a leadership position when he finds himself standing before God, doing things for God, and defending his sheep. God is with them. The Lord was with them. The verse that you mentioned ended with that phrase, the Lord was with him.
Right.
So when he was defending his sheep by himself, And shepherds had to have known how to fight. I think last week we talked about, the normal characteristic of a shepherd had to be a person of self-defense. Shepherds had to be on guard at all times from marauders, people that would come and steal their sheep. They would know how to fight them. They would have to know how to fight, predators like bears and lions and wolves, and I don't know the specific geographics of the animal life where he was specifically, but David knew that the Lord was with him and that he can overcome impossible odds by himself. And now his faith in the Lord is moving him to move others in the armies of Israel. And right now we're seeing that David is being used by God to rally the men and say, hey, we're not going to let this. Who's going to stand up? Who's going to do something about this? This is more than just a guy that's defying, an army. This guy is defying a nation that stands for God. And it starts off with a young boy shepherding his flock when the Lord is with him, and he knew God was with him. But now he's motivating others to have God's perspective in a hard time.
Right, good. Anybody else? Drew? Anything? Bob?
I think his motivation here more than anything is to, as we do in our lives sometimes, I think is to defend the faith, so to speak. He's defending God because he said, who is this person? What are we doing about it that he should fight the armies of the living God? I mean, he's standing up for right.
Right.
When nobody else was standing, he was taking a stand.
Right.
I mean, everybody looked at him and he said, wait a second. Y'all, this is the entire army. And nobody's willing to step up, and he's sitting there and defying the very army of the very living God, and nobody doing anything. I mean, where's your faith? Where's your strength? Where's your trust in God?
Right.
He said, I've got it, but where's yours?
Right, sure.
Like Adam said, challenging them. Look, man, step up and be men.
That's right. Now let's talk about that for a minute, because this is where the rubber meets the road for us, okay? The word responsibility. Responsibility. The ability to respond. This is what responsibility is, right? And all of these men had the responsibility to respond appropriately. What was their ability? They had God, right? And David is the one, as we'll see, who's going to say, it isn't about my sling and my staff. I come at you with the word of the living God. I come in the name of God. So, really, he's our weapon, right? And so our responsibility is we have the ability to respond with God, right? In all manners of our life, in all matters of our life. The question is, and this is an issue of faith, do we believe this? I was curious, and I looked up in Hebrews chapter 11. I wanted to remember what it had said about David, because this is a major thing that he did. And I was amazed to see that you read all these things. Turn to Hebrews 11. Let's just look at this real quick. You have all these different men that are being talked about in Hebrews 11 about their faith. And obviously David is exercising his faith, right?
Yes.
Well, look what it says, and let's see what verse it turns what verse it is. What verse? 30. Thank you. And what more shall I say, for time would fail me to tell of Gideon, of Barak, and of Samson, and of Jephthah, and of David also, and Samuel, and of the prophets. He's just another name in the list. No elaboration at all. We got elaboration on a bunch of the others. So this is like normal faith. Normal, strong faith. It's just one amongst many men.
And then 33 and on talk about some of those things.
Some of the things they did, right.
And
Exactly.
some of those must apply to David.
That's true. And so, my stomach's growling for some reason. Okay, excuse me for that. And so, and he turned. Okay, so let's look at yes.
I think I know where you're going, and I just want to pose the question: how can we be not in age, but how can we be Davids today? How can we have confidence with the weapons that God has given us for the day, for this day, for the church age? You know, not necessarily rallying up the United States Army and military, but how can we, as soldiers of Christ, because if you're a believer, this applies to you. If you're a Christian, you are in the army of God. You are enlisted. You're drafted, right, Jerry?
Yeah.
And so, what does this pose as a parallel, overlapping our responsibility today? I firmly would cross-reference where we're going to the weapons of our warfare as being spiritual. And I want to read something to you out of Colossians chapter 3, where we were in our last Bible study. The Bible says in Colossians 3:12, "Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy beloved, balanced with mercies and kindness and humbleness of mind, meekness and long-suffering, forbearing one another and forgiving one another. If any man have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, also do ye. Above all these things, put on charity, which is the bond of perfectness, and let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which also ye are called in one body, and be thankful." And so what I see here is that God has given us these weapons that He has purposed for us to use in our warfare, and I see them also in Ephesians chapter 4, where it says, Paul is writing, "I therefore, in the prison of the Lord, beseech you that ye walk worthy of the vocation wherewith ye are called, with all lowliness and meekness, with long suffering, forbearing one another." That is overlapping what we just read in Colossians. Long suffering, forbearing one another in love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit and bond of peace. There is one body, one Spirit, even as ye are called in one hope of your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in you all. This God is in all, above all, and through all. This is what made David's heart beat. God is above all, He is in all, and He is over this army He is over this man, this dog that is defying the armies of Israel. And today, our call is to walk worthy of the vocation and to have confidence in God's purpose. And God's purposes for us today to fight a spiritual warfare with these elements that are in Colossians 3 and Ephesians, the early verses of Ephesians 4. If Romans 8:28 says, "And we know all things work together for good to them that love God, to them that are called according to His purpose." That word "called" there is not referring to salvation. The word "called" there is to those believers who love God, who are called according to His purpose. We are called to walk worthy of the vocation, and that call, the hope you have in your calling. We can have confidence that humility, long-suffering, kindness, bowels of mercies, these elements that make up the Christian life, armor. We go out and we fight these things because our weapons are not carnal like David's sling or a sword, but they are spiritual. And these elements here is what God's purpose is for us to put on when we fight a spiritual battle. Do you have confidence in humility, or do you have confidence in your pride? Do you have confidence in your selfishness, or do you have confidence in your helping other selflessness? What do you have confidence in the heat of the moment? God's purpose or your purpose?
Okay. So let's get back into our passage here in 1 Samuel 17, and let's continue this sequence of events here. So his brothers accused him in verse 28 of pride. "I know thy pride," he says, "and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down to that thou mightest see the battle." This brother, there are people like this that take solace in criticizing others when they're not even doing their own good job themselves.
And probably bothered him, David rebuked him, and then that
Exactly.
irritated him, and
Yeah.
so the only way he didn't say, well, I was wrong. I think
Right.
he was saying that.
Now,
He lashed back.
a little underlying more ulterior motive is Eliab aware? Eliab, that's the name, right? Yeah. Of David's being anointed by Samuel.
They had to go.
They were right there, right?
Yeah, they had to go up and bring David into.
So do you think there's a little bit of a burr under his saddle here, maybe?
So a dumb question, so that's already happened?
Yes.
Yeah, that's in the past. Right. And so, a little bit like Joseph's brothers, right?
So sometimes, even in churches, so which is carefully, you have people who the Lord really blesses, and you'll have other Christians who react negatively to that cause they're, I don't know, for lack of a word, I guess jealous that God is blessing so-and-so and not them. Instead of looking where they find out why the Lord's not blessing them. And they sometimes are the ones who fight the Christian brother or sister just as hard sometimes as the couple of doing stuff for the Lord. So some of this may be in the fact that David was as close to the Lord as he was. And that convicted his brother of his relationship with God.
So then he could have been humble or prideful, so he instead said David was prideful.
Because sometimes people get that good way about somebody else. I mean, they're convicted because so-and-so's life, and that's not a bad thing. Our life should be an example that we convict others. But that's going on here. He's a little bit convicted about that.
So let me kind of harness a few of these ideas just a bit, okay? What we have here is a situation where David, who really is out of his element in the sense, he's in his element really, but thank you, he's out of his realm of responsibility, at least, not really, but as a parent, he's not a member of this army.
Right.
But his responsibility is what it is, period, okay? No matter where he goes, he has a responsibility. And so now he's hitting these crosswinds. Now consider the number of them. First of all, his brothers are upset with his motivation. So now his motives are suspect. Does he get defensive about this? Well, he says, when the words were heard, which David stated, they rehearsed before. David verse 29 says, David, what have I now done? Is there not a cause? So he proclaims his innocence. He's not afraid to defend himself. But he doesn't get stuck there. It's back to the mission. Okay? And I think a lot of times what people, come in just a second, a lot of people get stuck in this, as soon as they get criticized, they're like, back away. Because they don't want to be criticized. David doesn't do that. Go ahead, Drew.
I think the way he words it is really key too. He doesn't say, I haven't done anything. He doesn't make it as a statement of, I haven't done anything wrong. Yeah. I think he does a lot what Samuel does earlier when there's the whole issue with King. He asks them, what have I done to you? And have I taken anything from anyone? Because when you approach it this way, instead of, you're not telling the other person that they're wrong. Because, you all know, as soon as you tell someone they're wrong, what do? They just fight back more. Right? Instead, he asks them, what have I done? He puts it as a question, and so if I have done anything wrong, tell me. And when you do it that way, then it forces them to think about it, and then, they can't come up with anything. Right. So I think even the putting it as a question just shows his integrity, his humility, his desire to, make things move forward again.
And we already noted in the verse that Dave pointed out earlier was that he was skilled in his speech, in his, he had a way with words, he had a way, that is such a needed thing, isn't it? Is to figure out how to talk to people in a way that's effective. You know?
A little cat and diplomacy.
Absolutely. Goes a long way. And so we have David going back to what's the mission. Now I'm going to make another statement here. A man without a mission, and forgive me for saying it this way, it's almost like he is a eunuch. Is stripped of his ability to procreate in life, to carry an agenda forward in life. That's why they did this to men, to basically take away their manliness. Okay? We have a weakening of men I'll just say in America. We are trying to be stripped of our manliness. In fact, when you are trying to use any authority that you've been given, it's being undermined in every way possible. That is the work of Satan. He does it in our families, he does it in our businesses, he does it everywhere. Now, I'm not up here to try to say, be a macho man and try to show everybody how strong you are. No. What I am saying, Jesus was a man, right? But he was meek. Moses was a man, but he was meek. But meekness is simply strength under control. We've learned that, right? So you can have great strength and not be all macho about it. That's not the point. It's to try to act like you're tough. But you do need to be tough on the inside. When we look at the soldiers, and I love to study about, the Navy SEALs and some of these guys, the Army Rangers, these guys that do these things. They make it a thing to be tough. Why? Well, because, we need to remind ourselves, and we need that with each other, that toughness is required in life. And it's like, football teams, sports, it's all about that. But you know what? Why is it that Christians are expected to be sort of this wimpy, just jellyfish? Go ahead.
You have strong amongst Christians that we sometimes need to bring up to those two missionaries we had, Syria and in Sudan. Let me tell you what, I've been to Sudan. Let me tell you what, those are some strong missionaries.
Yeah.
Their lives are actually in danger every single minute of the day. And yet they stand for Christ.
Amen.
And they proclaim the truth.
Amen.
It's just like Dr. Weed that was here in China, and his son, and Ed Irwin's daughter. Their lives are under threat, and they hear them. Anybody in China, their lives are all it takes is one slip, and they're strong. Those are Christians. They're strong. They're meek, but they're strong. I looked up those missionaries and spoke to one of the interpreters, and I told him, I said, look, I've been to Sudan, and I tell you what, you have, just by his testimony, he gained all the respect in the world. And I took his part as I do with all missionaries, and I got a thing that I just put them down so that I remember to pray for them today, because that to me that really touched my heart when those men got up there. I know from being in Sudan, the fear that can overwhelm them. You don't know if it's in there.
Right. Amen. But here's my underlying belief. When we have cultivated a daily relationship with God, and when we go out and we know that He goes with us, we're going to have a holy boldness that we probably can't even explain. When your son was injured with the chainsaw, his body went into sort of shock. Because that's what happens. That's what the body does. And I don't know if you've ever been in a sort of what I would call an unreal situation you have been properly trained, your body just sort of takes over and it just reacts and it does what it knows to do. That's what happens in battle. That's what happens, in any kind of a situation where after it's all over, you're like, whoa, how did I do that? And when you're properly prepared, and you've got God behind you, be doing the thing that God has called you to do. You will know what your mission is, and you will know what you have to do, and you will walk into it with boldness, and you don't even care what the outcome is. I don't care if a guy's got a gun pointed to your face. I believe the Holy Spirit will be there with power to give you everything you need in that moment to do the right thing.
Amen.
He will put words in your mouth. That's talked about in the New Testament. And I think what we have to do is learn to trust God about these things and just say, Lord, I'm willing to do whatever you ask me to do, whatever situation it is, and just help me be faithful. God.
We need to learn to be led and to follow the Holy Spirit more than we do what men say.
Right.
And from out of the fear of all men may think.
Right.
So many times we don't do what we're supposed to do because we're afraid of what somebody might say or somebody might think if I do this or that. But if the Holy Spirit is leading us to do it, you got to remember the Lord is also equipping you to do it.
That's right.
And we're all guilty of it at times. I am.
Yeah.
And when we do that, we violate one of those other 22 commandments that the Lord gives us to quench not the Spirit.
Yeah. Amen. David and Fred.
I would encourage everyone to go pull out a movie called The War Room. The enemy is going to oppose you. And I don't think David was trying to run over his brother. His brother, was being used by the enemy. Just think what would happen if his brother got his way. If David, and notice, it's the oldest brother. Okay. You're supposed to listen to me. I'm higher on command here. And he comes after this and he's trying to shut David down. And David goes, what have I done? I'm doing anything wrong here. He knew he had done anything wrong. And he goes on and God uses him in a mighty way that not only affects him, but it affects his whole country. How many times are we in a position to do an act that affects our whole country? So this is not some little insignificant thing here. And his brother tried to shut him down, the enemy was trying to use him, and David stood up, and he was ready to go after him, doing what was right. And so the enemy will do everything he can against you where you're at to keep you from fulfilling your godly responsibilities. And one of the ways is, sometimes we think that prayer is something we do at the last thing, last resort. Prayer ought to be the first thing we do. If we really could open up our spiritual eyes and see the power that takes place when we pray, the prayer of a righteous man availeth much. And Ben, I can't emphasize enough for you, encourage you enough that what's at your disposal, the spiritual weapon is like you went through and listed all these things that Goliath had on it, these weapons. I'm really not sure there was anything else that could have been used successfully against him, except a boy's sling, a shepherd's sling. I'm not sure anything else that existed would have worked. I mean, you're going against this huge spear and all this armor. It's like I could have the sharpest sword in it, but I could sit there and hack on it, and it wouldn't do any good. Right. He used the one thing God gave him, and it worked. Right. God gave you this prayer. And so don't let people come and the enemy go, our prayers, listen, you can change lives. You can bring the heavens the angels of heavens to your disposal, And so it's like, whoa, I need to drop down where I'm at and start praying about this. And that's the weapon that the enemy will try everything within his power. He'll bring anybody at his disposal to come and keep you from doing that. That's right. And when you do it, Oh my goodness.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Amen, Fred.
Yeah, and this little shepherd boy that came out there delivering the food was probably the least likely person to solve the problem. And we can sometimes think, well, Lord, this crisis I'm in today, it's important, but who am I? And but God is what? He is creative. He reached the whole village of Sychar through a fallen woman. Who would have thought of that point? Right. And we can think of our national problems today, crisis. We owe trillions of dollars. Is that too hard for God? Yeah. Has He got some wild answer for that? Well, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah. Good point. Dave?
I was just thinking, it's not here in the text, but I wonder, David loved his brother. He didn't respond in anger. There's something hidden here, and that's, he loved him, and he looked from a high, he wasn't seeing it at this level. He came from a higher perspective and saw God's perspective and loved him and didn't treat him personal. You know, you heard, why'd you say that? I'm not personally offended. He love overlooks the transgression, and he moved on.
Yeah.
So there's some love in here.
That's good. There's so much in this passage. We haven't even confronted Goliath yet. Look how much time we've been able to talk about. I mean, it's taken a lot to get David to this point. The providence of providence of God has led him. We talked about the sling being probably the only. His forehead is like the only exposed part of his body, you know, and it's way up there. It needs something that can get up there. He probably couldn't even have reached it with his
design fault.
So
It's an engineering problem.
And so the things that you, Adam, were referring to in the New Testament, those things of the armor of God and the equipping of ourselves, these are real. And I wish we had more time to spend on all these things. So we'll wait until next week to get through the rest of the story. But so here we're going to be standing here. Let me remind you where we are. Everybody's trying to dissuade David from doing this. The king is going to offer his own armor. And you're going to see that David actually goes through the courtesy of putting it on. But he knows deep down, I have never fought this way before. You know, I can't do this. So he takes it all back off. He goes out down to the brook and he gets those famous five smooth stones. Some people say that was something for his other brothers. I think that's, a coincidence. It could be, but I don't know that David coming up that day knew that Goliath existed, much less that he had five brothers, just the logic of it. But God's providence certainly, could have, but that didn't come up that day, so it is what it is.
Talking about how much Saul Goliath's armor weighed, and I just want to ask y'all a little question. It is, you know how much or what part of a fish weighs the most? The scales.
Interesting.
That was funny.
Okay. So we're going to close here, but guys, every godly man needs a mission. If you don't have a mission, get one.
God man's got a mission.
That's exactly right.
God gave you that mission.
The great co-mission, right?
Go be.
Co-mission, that's an interesting word. Just thought of that. Co, that means along with someone else, doesn't it? Probably, I don't know if that's in that actual etymology.
So you look at Paul. Paul was somebody or sent somebody with him, or sent somebody to carry a letter, or all letters. So he already had somebody that was a co-laborer with him.
Walk worthy the vocation in which you are called, and the context there is the unity of the church.
Okay, good. So thank you. So everybody, appreciate you coming out. Look into this passage more. There's so much here. We'll continue next week. David's going to look at Goliath, and Goliath's going to look at him, and now Goliath's going to try to dissuade by intimidation. So intimidation will be the next thing we talk about. Jerry.
One thing I can't really think we had. How physical was it? Well, They killed a bear and killed a lion, right? How did you do that? The same?
He grabbed the bear, he grabbed the lion by his beard.
As small as he was.
You got it. Anything
So,
else?
going to Maine with a rocket and hit Goliath. What would have been, what was the problem?
It would have been an upgrade from the way he did it.
Yeah.
Didn't he grab it?
Yeah, we're canceled next week because of the kitchen, so it'll be normal schedule.
Okay, great, thank you for that, appreciate it. Hey, invite some others, if you think somebody else could be benefiting from these, this is not just about a story, this is about our lives and how we're living them. You know, God made us to be successful with what He's called us to do in life. The question is, how are we doing, and are we willing to do it with what He wants us to do? It's the same.
Number 297. Just as God was working through David, God does the same thing for us, and sometimes we don't see it. So our song this morning is sort of a reminder and a prayer for that. Open up my eyes that I may see. 297. 297. First verse up. Open my eyes that I may see